The following video has got all the information you need to know going into Game Week 11. I'm going to start this video as I do with all of them in the Ultimate Guide series, and that's by going through the top players for expected points by position according to DraftHound. Starting off with the goalkeepers, we've got Alisson, the top goalkeeper for expected points. He's got Luton away, heavily backed, I'd say, to keep a clean sheet. And obviously with Ederson in second place, the key differentiator for me between the two of them is Alisson actually tends to make saves. So there's a likelihood that Alisson not only keeps a clean sheet in that game, but is also likely to make some saves as well. We've got Ederson, Bournemouth at home in second, heavily backed, of course, to keep a clean sheet, as is Jose Sarr against Sheffield United. Vicario, interested to see him in fourth place with Chelsea at home as his fixture. I think that just goes to show how heavily backed Spurs are now with their start to the season. Emiliano Martinez, Johnston, Raya, Onana, Flecken and Trafford round out the goalkeepers. The top defender for expected points this week, it follows on a trend from Alisson. We've got Trent and Virgil van Dijk as the top two. Trippier in third place, still expected to do quite well despite playing Arsenal. Cash, Nottingham Forest away, obviously a really nice fixture for him, 5 expected points. Ruben Diaz, Luca Dean, and then it's full of Man City defenders, and Pedro Porro round out the defenders. Midfielders, and really no surprise to see Mo Salah top of the list. He's obviously having a fantastic season. Luton away, heavily backed to do well in that fixture. 9.1 expected points suggests that he's likely to get more than just one attacking return. Son heavily backed to do well against Chelsea at home. I definitely think he's got an opportunity to score some points there. Saka, Newcastle away, obviously a really tough fixture, but how well he's played so far this season. Of course, DraftHound saying they wouldn't be surprised. I'm also saying I wouldn't be surprised to see Saka get a return. Maddison up there as well. Odegaard, who obviously didn't play in Game Week 10. Foden and Bumo, Diaby, Mitoma and Szoboszlai round out the top midfielders. On now to the forwards. Interesting to see Haaland on 8.9, Salah actually on 9.1. So again, Salah is better for expected points than Erling Haaland. But I've got to say, I think this week it's a real 50-50 call on captaincy. But we'll talk about that in a second. Ollie Watkins, the second best forward for expected points, now up, of course, to 8.4 million, owned by 41.9% of players. 6.6 expected points against Forest away. I think managers can count themselves really unlucky in Game Week 10. He produced the most expected goals of any game week he's played so far this season and didn't get a single return. So Forest away, hoping he can go back to the returns. That's of course just luck, isn't it really? I mean, as most managers brought him in the game, it was inevitable that he was going to blank. Julian Alvarez, Darwin Núñez, Callum Wilson, Nketiah, Ferguson, Wissa, João Pedro and Cunha top the list of forwards. Always worth, in my opinion, having a chat about the captaincy, particularly in Game Week 11. I think it's 50-50 really between Salah and Haaland. We'll see how things play out midweek. There's Carabao Cup fixtures, so that could affect things. Me personally, I think I'm going to back Erling Haaland in Game Week 11 myself. It's slightly lower expected points, but there's 0.2 in it according to DraftHound, so there's not really too much to take from that. I just think Haaland's refound his form again. Man City playing well with Rodri back in the team. I think really that's particularly important for Man City, is having Rodri back in their team. I think they can do without Kevin De Bruyne creating chances for Haaland, but Rodri really is the linchpin of that team. With him back, I think Haaland's back to his best. Mo Salah, well, he's got a really easy fixture. You'd like to think so, at least against Luton away. He's obviously been heavily backed as captain in the last couple of game weeks and done really well, to be fair. So it's a really tough call. And to be honest, I think we should let the week play out in terms of Carabao Cup fixtures, etc. before making that final decision. But at the moment, I really do think it's 50-50. Son, Watkins and Saka, sort of outside picks. I think this week, though, Game Week 11 in particular, they're a bit too far off in terms of expected points to really want to back them as captains. So it really is between the two of Salah and Haaland for me. Clean sheet odds up next then, and we've got, well, one team above 50% according to DraftHound. That's Man City, 50% likely to keep a clean sheet against Bournemouth at home. I think I can largely agree with that. Liverpool, 48% against Luton. Aston Villa, 36%. Wolves, 36%. Man United, 33%. Usually, I like to say, and I say this in every video basically, I don't like to start defenders from teams with less than 30% clean sheet odds. I think quite a lot of people this week are going to own defenders from teams that have less than a 30% chance of keeping a clean sheet. I'd say exceptions from that rule are defenders that have got a really good chance of getting attacking returns. So, the likes of Trippier, maybe Estupinian if he's back, maybe Ben White from Arsenal potentially, but I'm not massively sure. Udogie as well, and Porro, they could potentially get some returns against Chelsea, but I wouldn't back them for a clean sheet. Yeah, as I said, Man City, the only team more likely than not to keep a clean sheet. So if you've got a Man City defender, you're laughing this week. I thought I'd just do a little feature on the Carabao Cup fixtures as well, because on Wednesday, the 1st of November, there are plenty of Premier League teams in action. We've got West Ham and Arsenal playing in one another. Gotta say, I think Bowen and Saka are both going to play this game. I'd expect Odegaard to start as well, and Nketiah's probably going to play that one. It's a tough game for both teams. They'll want to start relatively strong teams in order to win it. So yeah, most of the popular FPL assets of both of these teams I think are going to be in action on Wednesday. Likewise for Liverpool against Bournemouth, I'd imagine Solanke plays. Quite a few people have got him in FPL. And with the Luis Diaz situation, Cody Gakpo injury, I definitely expect Salah and Darwin Núñez to be starting for Liverpool. Chelsea, Cole Palmer's obviously quite a popular asset. He could well play against Blackburn. Everton and Burnley, they'll probably play quite strong teams each, but not massively worried for FPL. Man United and Newcastle as well playing each other. With the level of that game, I'd expect both teams to field strong 11s. So the likes of Trippier, I'd expect him to play. Probably Anthony Gordon as well. Man United players, probably not that popular in FPL. But Newcastle assets, I'd expect most of their best players to start that game as well. I just wanted to talk through some players that I've really got my eye on this game week as well. Brian Mbeumo is the first player I wanted to talk about. He is just consistently knocking up returns against any level of opposition. And I think that's an important point to make given he's got Liverpool and Arsenal in game weeks 12 and 13. Following that though, Luton and Brighton, two teams that can't really keep a clean sheet for Toffee, and West Ham as well seem to be really leaky. I think that's a decent set of fixtures for Mbeumo, to be honest. We all know he's on penalties without Tony. Absolutely guaranteed to start for Brentford. Going to play 90 minutes. And historically, Brentford, they have an excellent record against the top six, extending through to last season as well. And his underlying numbers, 0.92 expected returns per 90. He's one of the top midfielders in the game at the moment for that stat. 6 XG, 3 expected assists from 10 starts. Guys creating chances and getting amongst the goals as well. I think he's a great option. Saka's the next player I wanted to talk about. Obviously, wait for that Carabao Cup game to finish before absolutely confirming the transfer in. But regardless of the fixture, Newcastle away is obviously a tough one. But I wouldn't be surprised to see Arsenal and Saka amongst the goals in that game. He's just such a solid pick who keeps picking up returns. He's got a return per start he's made so far this season. I think 8.6 million is an absolute bargain. He's Arsenal's talisman. He's their best player. Of the players that will play in the front line, I think he is the most nailed as well. There's very little competition for his spot on the right-hand side. And with the defensive effort that he puts in as well, he's obviously one of Arteta's favourites. We've got the penalties argument as well. Yes, he's not going to take all of them, but he's still the designated penalty taker for Arsenal. So he's most likely, in my opinion, to be taking them despite giving quite a few away. Not quite as good on the underlying numbers, I'll admit, as Mbeumo, but 0.79 expected returns per 90 is absolutely fantastic. The next player to talk about, try not to be too knee-jerky on this one, but if Jesus is out for a little period of time, I think Nketiah is a really decent option. I'd expect him to play most of the Premier League fixtures. 5.5 million for the guy playing up front for Arsenal, I just think is fantastic value. Extending back to last season, Arsenal, they're fantastic at creating chances. One of the top attacking teams in the league, so the guy playing centre forward for them, I think is a great shout, regardless of his price in FPL. He could, of course, be benched at any time, but seeing that Arsenal don't really have a backup centre forward for him at the moment, I do expect him to be playing. The underlying numbers, though, they're not quite as good as the likes of Mbeumo and Saka, but you're only paying 5.5 million. He obviously scored the hat-trick against Sheffield United, but only 0.44 expected returns per 90. But we have to forget, he doesn't quite play the full 90 minutes every time he plays, so that has to be factored into it as well. But yeah, Eddie Nketiah, I think, is a great option. I really like the look of Mark Gahey as well. I think Palace are emerging as one of the best defences in the league so far this season. They've got a really nice set of upcoming fixtures as well. Burnley, Everton, Luton, West Ham and Bournemouth. I could quite easily foresee 2 or 3 clean sheets there. Another point to make about Crystal Palace as well, with both of their best attacking players in Eze and Elise being out, I think they're really going to have to rely on defensive solidity to get them through games and actually get them some points. So that means I think Hodgson's going to turn up the priority of defending in the games, basically, which I think means Palace are going to keep more clean sheets. You compare Gahey to the other Crystal Palace centre-back, Anderson, who admittedly has got more attacking returns, but you compare their underlying numbers, there's not a whole lot to separate them, and there's 0.4 million in terms of price. So if you're not already on Anderson, eyeing up a Crystal Palace defender, I think Gahey's actually your man. Ignore those current Anderson attacking returns, in my opinion, because I think, to be honest, they're a bit lucky. Gahey seemed, almost equally dangerous from set pieces, etc. So I wouldn't be surprised to see him get some attacking returns in upcoming fixtures. That Burnley game, not seeing Burnley as a great team at defending set pieces. They don't have a lot of height in their squad. I think Gahey could well get an attacking return and a clean sheet against them. So yeah, Mark Gahey, priority Palace defender. Alright, and that's the end of the video. That was all the information I could think to give you going into Game Week 11. Gives you a good view of the top players for expected points, players I want to buy, and of course a bit of news about the Carabao Cup fixtures to keep your eye on as well. If you enjoyed the video and found it useful, please leave me a like rating, subscribe to the Goal to Goal channel just there, and let me know in the comments what you're planning to do for Game Week 11. And I will catch you in my next video.